Welcome to Just Us Resources LLC presents Minding Your Business. Make sure to like, subscribe, and share so that you do not miss any of the content that we have just for you. Just Us Resources LLC is a company that offers resume services, formal and informal business writing services. We also support other businesses, entrepreneurs, career-minded individuals through this channel. Our goal is to share information on how other individuals have taken their hopes and dreams off the shelf and decided to mind their own business.
Hello everyone, we're here for another episode of Minding Your Business. I'm Tracy Burnett with Just Us Resources presents Minding Your Own Business. And we are here today and we're going to speak with Melissa Harris. Melissa Harris is with Dynamic Recruiting Services and she has founded this company to be an inspiration, support, and network to so many in her area. So we're going to let Miss Melissa tell us a little bit about Dynamic Recruiting Services. But before we do that, we want to talk to Melissa about Melissa. So Melissa, it is so great sitting down with you today. I know we have known each other for quite some time. But for our viewers who may not know or may not have heard of your services, tell us a little bit about yourself before we get into Dynamic Recruiting. Tell us a little bit about the woman behind the business, the woman that minds the business.
Yes, Miss Burnett. We have definitely known each other for a long time. To just tell you a little bit about myself, Melissa Harris. I'm a 44-year-old single mother of four that had a vision about 6 years ago to start a staffing and recruiting agency. By far, this has been an experience that. All right, I'm sorry. We're going to edit this, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So I have over 10 years experience as a recruiter, recruiting for various positions such as manufacturing, light industrial, medical, transportation, clerical, and administrative. More than anything, I have a passion to help others.
Yes, and we've seen that passion, as we said, well, what we know and what we're going to share with others today. But the great thing about that passion is that was the instrumental piece in making you start Dynamic Recruiting Services, wouldn't you say?
Yes. I have worked in the industry for years, helping others build their companies, and I was making pennies on the dollar. I wanted to show my children, more so than anything, that you can not just help build somebody else's vision, but you could build your own. And so I wanted them to know that they could become an entrepreneur. And I needed to be the one to lay that milestone for them. So that's one of the reasons that I started Dynamic Recruiting Services, were for my children and just to be able to help others.
And that's the thing. That's called leaving that legacy. When you start your business, you mention your children. So it's definitely leaving that legacy and being that inspiration now, especially in the year that we just coming out of 2020 into a brand new 2021. We want to leave a legacy because 2020 had many people in doubt, especially small businesses or businesses in general. So for Dynamic Recruiting Services, what made you get over those hurdles during the pandemic and doing everything else that went on in such a year of, I wouldn't know what to call 2020. I wouldn't know to say turmoil or just, it was a lot for people. It was a lot. So how was it for Dynamic Recruiting Services getting over that hurdle? But before we go into that, Ms. Harris, I would be remiss in telling people what exactly does Dynamic Recruiting Services do?
Dynamic Recruiting Services is actually a temporary staffing and recruiting agency. So, therefore, we help people find jobs or employment. We do temp to perm positions, but we also do direct hire positions. We do short term contracts. It really depends on the client and what the client needs at that time.
So catering to the client's desires and the client's needs is so very, very important. It's sort of like what I tell people when they come to Just Us or inquiring about a resume. That resume doesn't need to curtail to anyone else but you. What is it that speaks about you? The resume needs to tell your story in a detail on paper that makes sense to businesses so that it will stand out. So for dynamic recruiting services, as you just mentioned, it seems like the company in catering to those individuals, you want to know what the passion is with that individual. A lot of times, I've seen it, and you may have seen this too, Ms. Harris, that when individuals do get a job, it's not their passion. Of course, there are times when you just have to do what you have to do, but with dynamic recruiting service, you try to blend that person in, or is there any way to blend that person in with something that they would love to do or would like to do, or is it sometimes just something that they have to do? How would you say it happens when it comes to recruiting services?
Well, the motto of Dynamic Recruiting Services is handpicked quality over quantity every time.
Mm.
And with that being said, once we realize that there is a need for our client, we will strategically go through and try to pick the ideal candidate for that position. So that way we'll have a perfect match. We want to make sure that the employee loves that position just as much as the client loves that employee. So that way you don't have a heavy turnover rate or any of that. You want to, if the client is looking for a temp to perm person, then or we call them lease labor. If you're looking for a lease labor person, then you want to, in the end goal is to have that person hired permanently on with that company. So if we handpick that client, that I'm sorry, if we handpick that employee for the client, then most of the time they'll have a lasting relationship. And that's the goal.
Absolutely. Are there any particular areas of employment that dynamic recruiting caters to over more one so the other, or are you looking to branch out in almost every area or certain areas?
Right now, I'm sorry. Right now, we're focused on, we do a lot of customer service for the temp to perm positions, but we also do direct hire positions. And with those, we're leaning more into the medical field. And so it's myself and I have another recruiter as well. So we focus on RNs, LPNs, physicians. So it's just a little bit, across the we do a little bit across the board, but we're strategically picking positions where we know that we can jump out there and get the best quality for our client.
Absolutely. And that makes such a difference and such a lasting impression on companies like your company, when it comes to referrals and being able to recruit and contract with other companies and other businesses, having that lasting relationship. Wouldn't you say?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Is that a focus? What keeps you focused? What's going off into another direction, just briefly, what keeps you focused with dynamic recruiting service when it comes to balancing out? I love to ask people about how do they balance things out and maintain that balance. For a mom or a single mom or what have you, what keeps you focused with being a mom, running a company, maybe having other entities that you're involved in? What keeps that balance for you?
For one, it's success. And for two, it's my reasons why. I have to stay focused on my why. And I would have to say, again, my why falls back to how I relate to them as my four heartbeats. And those are my children. And so now my children have children. And so it's a total of 8 heartbeats at this point. So
Awesome.
I stay focused with the heartbeats.
That remind me of what conversation having earlier with someone, and we talked about how that whatever your inspiration is, and in this case, maybe in being your children, what your inspiration can be your motivation to your destination. So certainly having the dynamic recruiting services and the destination of helping individuals all over, or helping individuals when it comes to getting a job and understanding how to maintain that job. Is there other areas that you kind of share with your client, maybe about the resumes or preparing for interviews when it comes to dynamic recruiting services?
Yes, we will take the resume of the employee, and we will go through it. We clean it up real good for the client. So, it'll be, when they look at that resume, they see what I see sitting in front of me. And that's very important, because a lot of times you can just put words on paper, but it doesn't explain really who the person is. So you have to go into detail, as you know, with Just Us Resources. When you do the resume, you paint a picture for the client, and that's what we have to do for our clients as well, is paint that picture. And also we let our employees know how they need to dress whenever they go into an interview, some of the key words that they need to say whenever they go into the interview. We also encourage them to be themselves as well. And with that being said, try not to be too nervous. Go in, be confident. Know that you have this position. Let the company know what you have to offer and why they should hire you. What makes you different from the next person.
Absolutely. That you mentioned something so critical earlier. For the employer or future employer to see on paper what you see in front of you. So if you're sharing or getting information from a client who's looking to land a job, or from that potential person, you want to bring the very best out for them, so that when they get in front of the employer, it just makes sense.
Absolutely.
And it's that connection. And that's the great thing about being dynamic with dynamic recruiting services. So we love that. Thank you so much in that. Anything that you could tell us about coming into from 2020 to 2021? Because I know certainly for businesses or small businesses, there was a lot. And get through COVID, get through the pandemic. And I ask that because a lot of times there are businesses out there, they don't know where to begin, they don't know where to cope. COVID had limited them in 2020. They couldn't get out there as much as they wanted to. So the thing was like, what do I do? How do I generate my face out there? How do I make things make sense in my business? Because when it's not physical, a lot of companies have had to close their doors. But what made it so great about dynamic recruiting service persevering through 2020 and coming into 2021? What resources did you find helpful?
Well, I would say, I'm sorry. Ask that question again, Miss Burnett.
Okay. Cut that last part out, Rick. All right. So, Miss Harris or Melissa, in coming from 2020 into 2021, we're looking for greater and greater things. Was there anything that kind of made you feel like, hey, we're going through a pandemic, we got a lot of things out there, businesses are shutting down, I got to do things different with my recruiting services, as well as other companies having to do things different? Did you find that you had to do a different way with your clients, so much less physical, as more of just having virtual conversations with them in order to help them get to or get a job? Did you find that things were having to be just a little bit different, or that you had to change your format because of the things that happened in 2020?
Yes. Sorry about that. Yes. We did have to do more virtual. So we did more Skype interviews, or, just versus doing face to face. So there were things that were different.
Yes, yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
It was a lot. It was a lot, and that's the great thing about sitting down having this conversation, and and having the realness with you. You know, it was a lot for businesses. It was a lot to endure. You know, we share that, and that's so great about having the format and us being able to sit down and have this conversation, because I love the fact that you didn't stop and you didn't give up, and you were able to make a difference and help several people get jobs. And we know that the impact that you have made in the community has been nothing short of inspirational and great. You know, a lot of companies or a lot of recruiting services had to change their format. A lot of people had to realize, hey, these people can't. We have to change the way about people coming into our office. There are things we have to change from physical to being virtual. And so, for a lot of companies who couldn't figure that out, or who didn't have the finances or the resources, it caused for them to have to shut their doors. And the great thing about having this format, ladies and gentlemen, is that we can connect and join and work together in getting the various resources and the information about companies such as dynamic recruiting services out there, and putting it so that you know where you can go to obtain this helpful and useful information. And Ms. Harris, with that said, what are your goals, or what are the other goals for dynamic recruiting services in 2021?
Well, 2021, we definitely want to capture a bigger marketplace. We want to provide better customer service, and we want to improve our employee training. We want to just pretty much grow our business even more.
That's awesome. You know what, Ms. Harris, one of the things I will say about that growth and the growing that we have in our 2020-21 year is that we have the leadership as women, and we have a new vice president in office, a female, that encourages us even more. So I would say to anyone out there that there's nothing you can't do if you just set your mind to it and believe. And I always say, move your faith forward. How do you feel about the up and coming and empowerment of more women taking their roles or taking their place in the world, Ms. Harris? How do you feel about that as a leader and having your own business also with dynamic recruiting?
Well, I definitely feel like as a woman, we should empower each other and see the strength that each other have the, and see the strength that each of us holds, and
Yes.
try to encourage each other to try to move in the direction in which we need to go. It doesn't matter what type of business you have or what type of vision you have, as long as you start to do something with that. Um, with dynamic recruiting services, I actually had the vision 6 years ago, and I wanted to move forward, but I was nervous. I was scared. My children were younger, and the only thing that I could focus on was the right now. But I would tell each woman to really look at the big picture. Look at where you are and where you want to go. You're not going to see everything that falls in the middle. We never do. But if you can see the beginning, which is the starting place, and you see the ending, which is the vision or the goal, just continue to press. And understand that in the midst of your pressing, a lot of times it gets hard, but keep pressing anyway. And one of my favorite people, I've heard her say this for years now. When she gets to a hard place, or to a place that she's not quite sure of, she has to reach above the break. You have to reach above your breaking point, and you just continue to move, because having your own business is not easy. You have tests, you have trials, you have situations, but you have to stay focused. And when you want to give up, just take another step. When you want to quit, just reach above the break. And when you do that, you will eventually see that you're going to get exactly where you want to go. You're going to get to that end place. So I encourage each woman to get out there and do your thing, because ladies, we rock.
Absolutely. I appreciate that testament, Miss Harris, and definitely each and every one of you. We're going to share with you the reason behind Reach Beyond Your Breaking Point one day very soon. But for right now, we just wanted to stay in tune and introduce you to the Dynamic Recruiting Services and the Dynamic Recruiting Service. How can they get in touch with Dynamic Recruiting Services, Ms. Keys, if they want to, if a company wants to contract with you, or if someone is interested in seeing if there's any employment opportunities through Dynamic?
You can always email me at melissa@dynamicrecruitingservices.com, or you can call me at 252-373-9557.
And you also have a Facebook page that they can go to as well for Dynamic Recruiting Services. Is that correct?
I do have a Facebook page as well. And it's right now it's Melissa Harris.
All right. So there you go, people. You can get in touch with Ms. Harris if you have questions concerned about dynamic recruiting, about the services, and about how you can find out what's available at Dynamic Recruiting Services. And we just wanted to bring to you on this episode also an individual, also a woman who definitely knows how to reach past the breaking points. You heard it right here, ladies and gentlemen, how you too can reach past the points in your life where you feel that you just can't go any further. That's the great thing about being able to, whether you start your own business or start your new career, you just got to be willing to get that idea, get those dreams and goals off the shelf and reach beyond your breaking point. Miss Harris, is there any final words that you would like to say to the audience today?
Again, I would just like to encourage you to be the very best you that you can possibly be. If you have a goal or a vision, press toward it and just continue to stay focused. And most of all, think about your reasons why.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, you have it there from Miss Melissa Harris with Dynamic Recruiting Services. Think about your reason why. What is your reason why that you're starting your business? Taking your ideas and dreams and goals off that shelf and making yourself the very best you that you can be. Continue to move your faith forward. It doesn't matter what you do or what you have to do. Your gift is your gift. And we enjoy and thank you for stopping by. Just Us Resources presents Minding Your Business. You have just heard